It is an absolutely gorgeous afternoon here in Seattle with better than 200,000 fans either sitting on the shores of Lake Washington or out in one of the several hundred yachts on the log boom which runs down the back straightaway on the east side of this 2-mile course. Hi, everybody. I'm Don Poyer along with Jim Kropfeld of the Miss Budweiser, the current national points leader. But that lead is getting slimmer and slimmer all the time, James.
It sure is, Don. With the problem we had in Pasco not starting that final heat, Chip grabbed an extra 400 points right there by winning, and 400 points in one heat with a 500-point lead on the Budweiser's part, that's a very close race.
Very briefly, hazardous conditions at times out here. You get parallel rollers down the back straightaway.
It's a funny course. It's completely different than any course we run, and the water conditions, they're never the same or typical in any two parts of the race course, and it's a driver's course. It takes a lot of concentration.
Well, the man that's chasing Jim is Chip Hanauer, as Jim referred to, of the Miller American. Jim Hendrick is with him right now.
All right, Don. What about that lead, Chip?
Well, it's still a substantial lead, 530 points, but it's doable now. It's possible. After Miami, the first race of the year, and we didn't start a single heat and being 1,200 points in the hole, I didn't think it'd ever be doable.
This is your hometown race. You know this course pretty good. What about the rough spots?
It's just one big rough spot, I'd say. It's just, what happens is that there's got to be 5,000 pleasure boats out there, and they move around all day, and so it's an artificial roughness. It's going a million different directions, and it's rough everywhere on the race course.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, now let's check the combatants in Heat 1A. Jack Schaefer at 105.8 in qualifying will drive the Tempest. Cellular 1 with Todd Yarling at 110.9. Holset Miss Madison, Ron Snyder, the driver, at 112.4. Miss 711 Turbine, Steve Reynolds at the wheel, checked in at 125.4. Mr. Pringle, Scott Pierce at 127.4. And the Miss Budweiser Turbine with Jim Kropfeld, second highest qualifier at 135.6. And that's the way they line up for Heat 1A. And now, Don Poyer, what about 1B?
Jim, we've got an 11-boat field, just like we did last week in Tri-Cities. Here's the rundown for Heat 1B with 5 boats. First of all, the Oh Boy Oberto with Seattle native George Johnson qualifying at 106.58. Next is the Frank Kenny Unlimited with Milner Irvin out of Florida, 116.26 miles per hour. Coming up next, the AA Auto Supply with Mike Hansen, 118.22 miles per hour. The Z Squire Shop, Tom DeEath aboard in his last race, so he says anyway, qualifying at 127.52. And finally, the Miller American with Chip Hanauer out of Seattle, qualifying at number 1, 140.51 miles per hour. On every racing circuit, there is always at least 1 or 2 very special races during the year. And this is one of them. We're in Seattle, Heat 1A, coming up in just a minute. Back to Seattle and the Budweiser Emerald Cup. Heat 1A coming up. I'm Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick. This is the Mr. Pringles going in. Scotty Pierce, the driver, making sure that his stopwatch is started on time.
Punch it, reset it again.
And they're having the crew do it. Jim Kropfeld, the Budweiser driver, heading out. Tim Ramsey, Steve Olson, crew members there helping him. Looks like the 7-Eleven a little behind schedule. I hope they can make Heat 1A in time. And this is the Cellular 1, Todd Yarling out of Hanover, Indiana. He'll be driving this rig, their second year out in Seattle. Still a lot of hurrying going on the 7-Eleven camp. This is Don Parkin. They call him Pinky, one of the crew members. Steve Reynolds seems to be ready to go, though, the driver of the 7-Eleven. And hopefully they will have that boat out there and ready in time. Yes, they do. As you see the Budweiser go out, the 7-Eleven up on the sling, and we should have all 6 boats ready to go. Look at this. Even the Budweiser crew members are out helping the 7-Eleven crew get this boat out in time. Nice sportsmanship on the part of the Budweiser team. Steve Reynolds, of course, a hometown man, grew up on the island in the background of this picture, Mercer Island in Seattle. So he's been around the hydroplanes for many, many years. And this race, as it is for many of the Seattle drivers, awfully special. They want to win in front of their hometown fans. So Steve Reynolds looking for his first victory in 1986. We'll try again here in Seattle for Steve Woomer's 7-Eleven team. Out goes the 7-Eleven. Protective carpet out of the way, and we're ready to go racing. And here are the drivers for Heat 1A. Jack Schaefer driving Chuck Ickling's Tempest, a tunnel boat. Todd Yarling out of Hanover, Indiana, as I said, driving the Cellular 1, his second trip to Seattle. Ron Snyder, popular driver, driving the Holset Miss Madison, a conventional style boat. Steve Reynolds out of Seattle and the turbine-powered Miss 7-Eleven. Also, Scotty Pierce, also out of Seattle, in the Mr. Pringles, its second race as a sponsor. Finally, Jim Kropfeld, national point leader aboard the Miss Budweiser. All 6 boats are running for Heat 1A. Oh, this is something special, racing in front of Seattle fans. And here's the start. You heard the gun. The starting boat's right on the button. The Budweiser in lane number 2. And Ron Snyder in the Holson Miss Madison in lane number 1 on the right of your screen. This is a 2-mile course. Already, you can see how the boats are bouncing up and down. The Budweiser, there's Bernie Little and his wife Jane watching from a scissor lift, a tower. He can watch the race from the pits. The Budweiser in lane number 1 and in first place, going down the back chute. Moving into second place is the 7-Eleven. In third, Ron Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio. Here's the Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld. He talked about how rough it's getting out there, and you can get some idea of the ride that he's going through. This is the Budweiser coming down the main straightaway, and look who's moving up. The 7-Eleven on the inside, pulling on the Budweiser. Kropfeld in first. 7-Eleven in second. There's a great shot coming down the main chute with the Budweiser still holding on to first place. We'll get a speed for Kropfeld in just a moment. But the Budweiser holding on to first. Fighting off 7-Eleven. Steve Reynolds, a good friend of Jim Kropfeld. And they are 1 and 2 after lap number 1. Speed for the Budweiser. 116 miles per hour. 113 for the 7-Eleven. Look out, Ron Snyder. They've lost an engine in the Holson Miss Madison. He's done for this heat. Moving into third place now is the Mr. Pringles with Scotty Pierce. There's the second place boat, Steve Reynolds. Here's third place, Mr. Pringles with Scotty Pierce. In second and third, you have Seattle drivers. In first place, a Cincinnati driver, that being Jim Kropfeld. And the turbine-powered Miss Budweiser way up on the right spots, and it is getting very treacherous up in the north turn. It was last year when the 7-Eleven almost lost its right Swanson, and now the Budweiser taking a beating. Second place is Steve Reynolds in the 7-Eleven, trying to get more power out of that Lycoming engine. They've been doing a lot of work on the boat, getting it running much faster. The Pringles boat, very reliable. A good driver in Scotty Pierce out of Seattle. He is in third place. Budweiser in second place. The speed much higher for the Bud after lap number 2, 124.61 miles per hour. So he is not waiting for anybody to try to even catch up with him. The 7-Eleven has dropped back, as you can see on our perspective shot, along the log boom. Thousands of yachts down there on the back straightaway, about maybe 500 yards away from the actual course. But still, the waves bounce off of those boats and come right into the main straightaway in the back and the front straightaway as well. Back in fourth place is the Segula 1 and Todd Yarling, who made the final here last year when the Gold Cup was held in Seattle. A great performance, and they hope to do the same here. Back to the Budweiser, back into that tough corner. You can see the tail wave back and forth. An incredible beating this boat is taking as they go around the north turn. The Budweiser really putting it down, and likewise for the 7-Eleven. Speed for the Budweiser. And wait a minute, the 7-Eleven is slowing down. Something's gone wrong with the 7-Eleven. Steve Woomer, the owner of the boat, the man in the sunglasses, he can't believe it. Now the Budweiser still bouncing along. Speed for the Bud, 126.9. That is a new 2-mile course record in a competitive lap for Seattle. This is a 2-mile course, used to be 2.5 miles. Now it's 2, and moving into second was the Mr. Pringles. Into third, the Segula 1 and Todd Yarling. That would give him valuable points and trying to get into that final. Back to the Budweiser. You saw the 7-Eleven in the foreground. Again, Kropfeld trying to negotiate through this tough north turn. Doesn't seem to be quite as bad in the south turn, but the Budweiser and the checkered flag awaiting him as he comes down for 400 points. The Budweiser and Kropfeld, he's in good shape to get into the final. Second place will go to Scotty Pierce and the Mr. Pringles. 300 points. That should put them in really quite good shape as well for the final. One more preliminary to go. And here's the Segula 1, 225 points. Third place to Todd Yarling. Looking at the results of 1A, the Budweiser not only set a lap speed record, competitive lap, but also a heat speed record of 117.7 miles per hour on this 2-mile course. Down to the Budweiser camp with Jim Hendrick.
Jim, you had to notice that you're being pressed by a 7-Eleven. Your fastest lap was lap number 3 at 126 plus.
Well, I wasn't worried about the speed. It's rough out there. I went as fast as I had to go to stay ahead, and I knew Steve was there, and I took everything I had to get away from him.
Where'd you find him?
Well, I knew he was there all the time. I saw him on the start, and I knew where he was, and I saw him when he cut to the inside.
Is the water taking its toll in that back chute?
It's very rough back there. It's as bad as it's ever been here. It really puts a lot of demand on the driver and the equipment.
Okay. Well, 7-Eleven had their problems, and Don Poyer's over at that camp.
Gearbox, huh? Yeah, it looks like the the wheel backed off the gearbox on one of the gears. Just same thing that happened to Budweiser back in Evansville. I think we've encountered the very same problem. In fact, it was incredible. The boat quit going. I looked down, the engine's still putting out 100%. I'm going, but I'm not going anywhere.
You have another gearbox in the truck, I assume.
Yeah, we do. Not the gear ratio that I'd like, but, you know, the hair presents a problem. Depending on the draw next heat, we have to win to even get a maybe into the final heat. So it's going to be it's third and long.
One thing we did see, though, you were pulling on the Budweiser.
It's finally putting out some power, and the boat is running stably. I was just starting to trim the boat and picking up about 5 or so miles an hour per straightaway. It was running pretty good.
Well, it looks like there's been some damage to the Budweiser as well.
It appears that we lost some fiberglass skin off the left sponson.
Cosmetic mainly?
Well, it's on the outboard side of the left sponson, so it really doesn't take the abuse of the thrust. So we'll put some kind of a patch over it right now, and we should be in pretty good shape.
So while the 7-Eleven and Budweiser get patched up, we'll be back with 1B in a minute. Welcome back to Seattle. This is Phil Davies, one of our cameramen who gives you those tremendous tight shots of the boats coming down the straightaway. And some of the better than 300,000 people on board. This is the Kenny Toyota ready to go out, or the Kenny Unlimited they call it. This, the Miller American, which is nipping at the heels of the Miss Budweiser for the national point lead. Chip Hanauer aboard, and out he heads onto the Seattle 2-mile course. Let's take a look at the drivers for Heat 1B. There are 5 of them. And here are the drivers. George Johnson out of Seattle in the Oh Boy Oberto. Milner Irvin out of Coral Gables, Florida, driving the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Mike Hansen, also a driver from the state of Washington in the AA Auto Supply. And Tom Deeth in his last race. He'll retire after today in the Squire Shop. Finally, Chip Hanauer and the Miller American, the turbine-powered boat. The 5 boats head down the main straightaway, and here we go with the start of Heat 1B. Right on the button was the Squire Shop and Tom Deeth, who has been known for his starts, especially this year. But on his inside hip, there he is, the Miller American and Chip Hanauer, already with good positioning as they go into the south turn. The Miller American holding on to lane number 1 down on that choppy south turn. And now they go along, as you see the perspective shot, along the log boom. Yachts have a front row seat to see the boats come by into that north turn. Look at the Miller American. It handles so beautifully. This boat built by Jim Lucero, an absolutely gorgeous boat. And this is Bob Style, the owner of the Squire Shop, which is currently in 2nd place. Coming down to complete lap number 1, the Miller American at 124.8 miles per hour. And in 2nd place is Tom Deeth, as I said, in his last race, he's in 2nd. Edward Muncie, this is the late Bill Muncie's son, who is shooting this boat right here, the Miller American. He's a part of the team, which is owned by Fran Muncie, the late Bill Muncie's wife. Chip Hanauer, again out of Seattle, who began his racing career in the K-boat on Lake Sammamish, which is about a stone's throw away from Lake Washington. He is in front of his hometown crowd. Mike Hansen, same for him, aboard the AA Auto Supply. And again, to the back chute. This is where it is so tricky because you have rollers coming off of these boats, and they run parallel with the course of the boats, which means the boats can easily get out of attitude and mess up the air, which is flowing normally under the boats very comfortably, but it can get very, very rough and tricky and downright dangerous. The Miller American, Chip Hanauer, 2nd place, the Squire Shop, and Tom Deeth out of Fairhaven, Michigan. The U-2, a great boat. It used to be the Atlas Van Lines. Chip Hanauer drove that boat back in 1982 when they won the Gold Cup. The Miller American coming down, probably be the last year for this boat. They have a new one that is already waiting down in Kent, which they will use next year. It'll have the new red and white colors of the Miller American for 1987. Back to Tom Deeth, who got a 2nd place over in Tri-Cities a week ago. He got a 2nd, as a matter of fact, back in Evansville. A tremendous race with a Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld. Deeth led for 4 laps before the Budweiser finally overtook him. This boat, the Miller American, the theory behind this one, keep it light, let it fly over the turbulent waters, rather than trying to build huge sponsons and simply beat its way through the rough water. As you see, again, The Squire Shop flying way up the right spots and getting up into the air as we got one of our cameras right in the cockpit with Tom DeHeath. Miller American speed now 126 miles per hour after lap number 3. Michael Hansen aboard the AA Auto Supply. This was the U40 a couple of years ago. Scotty Pierce drove it, and it has been around the circuit for quite some time. Back to the Miller American in a close national points race with the Budweiser. Just a little over 500 points behind. And now here again, he is Tom DeHeath in second place. He hopes to come out of this maybe with a win as he ends his career here in Seattle. He says he'll go back to maybe the 2.5 liters and just have fun in the smaller boats. Maybe some auto racing, but no more of the Unlimited. Chip Hanauer, of course, what can you say about this man? He won his 4th consecutive Gold Cup on this very course last year in Seattle. Won his 5th this year in Detroit in the 2nd race of 1986. Again, back to the Squires. He goes past the Oboy Oberto again. George Johnson having a tough time with the Oberto. Has done his best, and the crew has done its best of trying to get it to perform a little bit better for its sponsor, Art Oberto. Miller American still running. We have 3 boats running so far. The Frank Kenny Toyota, Frank Kenny Unlimited went dead in the water. The Oboy Oberto, we understand, has been black flagged now because it was not maintaining a plane. So in second place is this boat, the Squires Shop, with Tom DeHeath. And in third place is Michael Hansen, doing a great job. This is only his 2nd race in the Unlimited, his first being in Tri-Cities 1 week ago. Jumped into the cockpit his first time and ran better than 110 miles per hour on a qualifying lap. So he has a bright future in the Unlimited as long as he can find that ride, and it's never that easy. The Miller American down the straightaway for the last time. 400 points in the winner of Heat 1B. Second place to the big red boat, the Squire Shop, and Tom DeHeath. 300 points to the Squire. So here it is. 2, check that, 3 boats finishing. 2, no luck for the Oboy Oberto and the Frank Kenny Unlimited. Let's go down to the Miller camp and the Squire camp.
Chip, looks like it's kind of a Sunday ride out there, that first heat.
Well, yeah, I would hope that the final will be like that, but both you and I know that it's not going to be that easy.
Water conditions, any improved?
Finest I've seen in Seattle. This is a rough place because I think we have 5,000 some pleasure boats out there, and they're all moving around, and it's calm for Seattle.
Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Now, what's the water like? We're always talking about it in Seattle. Chip thinks it's the best he's seen it in years. What about you?
Well, he's probably right because he's raced here more than I have, but it's pretty good. It's going to get worse, though, as the day goes on.
Okay, is boat running as you want it to right now?
Yeah, game plan right now is still on target, so we're looking forward to getting the setup in there and going for it in the final heat. That's where the money is.
Down at the Budweiser camp, they're putting the finishing touches on the repair of the left spots, and it looks like they'll be ready to go for the second go-around. 7-Eleven likewise working on the area around the gearbox, so they should be ready as well. And now it's time for the drawing for Heat 2A and 2B. We'll have that for you in a minute. We've just gotten word that the Miller American set a record, a heat record of 123.2 on that earlier heat. Back in a minute.